Hello everybody, I'm Melissa from Untitled Astrology. Today we're going to walk through the astrology of June 21st through 27th. We have a few interesting things to look at here on this summer solstice week. Before we do, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, take just a second to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss anything that we have going on here. These weekly videos, they come out every Saturday morning, so you can have them ahead of the upcoming week. And then Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we host a live astrologically guided meditation where the goal really is to take the astrology, take the transits that are above all of us collectively, bring it down to a personal level. We start by talking about some of the major things. We use the weekly intention that is released on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Friday nights, to lean into the energy. But then we come down to that quiet, contemplative space where really the goal is to give you the opportunity and the space to commune with the astrology, to have a personal conversation that creates personal relationship with the energies that are around us. The transits are above all of us, but they are all interacting with our own personal lives, birth charts, circumstances, situations. Each person is different from the next, right? So the transits affect us all in different ways, right? The archetypes can show up in many, many different ways. So coming down to that contemplative space really is helpful in creating and empowering you to understand the astrology on a personal level and really feel like it's more accessible, more down here. It's almost like giving yourself your own personal reading, even if you don't feel like you know how to do that on any sort of level. So subscribe YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that's where the weekly intention is shared. That's where other post announcements, sometimes there's changes to the meditation schedule. That is all on social media. So yeah, let's connect on all of the things and walk this astrological journey together, shall we? Let's go ahead and start right ahead with this week here. We started on Sunday, June 21st with the summer solstice, with the sun moving into the sign of Cancer. So happy summer solstice to all of you, and happy birthday to all of our Cancer suns that are out there. The solstice moments, the equinox moments, they are sacred pause moments, right? They tether our tropical zodiac. So when we hit 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Libra, 0 Capricorn. These are our cardinal signs. These are turning points, right? The cardinal signs are the turning points or the initiating signs. They initiate and bring us into a new season. So the summer season is starting in the Northern Hemisphere with 0 Cancer. Now, they are turning points as far as the quality of light that we have in the zodiacal year. In those cardinal signs and those turning points, the solstices and the equinoxes, they shift the solar story as the sun moves through the zodiac, right? We start at 0 Aries, where the sun comes into dominance and light is gaining stronger every single day, and the dark is slowly waning. So light is waning and dark is waxing. One is increasing and the other is decreasing. Then we get to 0 Cancer, which is the next cardinal point, which is where our summer solstice is, which is where we are. That light that has been increasing and is now at its strongest point, right? It's the most dominant. It's the longest day in the Northern Hemisphere. But slowly, ever so slowly, as we go forward from that summer solstice moment, dark is slowly starting to creep in, right? We don't notice it right away. It's very subtle. It's a very slow build. But ever so slowly, the light is starting to fall away and the dark is slowly starting to creep in here. So there's the initiation into the light waning period or the light losing period versus the light waxing or the light increasing period here. The sign that is associated with the summer solstice and the subtle dark increasing, the dark relating to matter in the physical world, creeping in, the sign of Cancer, is associated with the body. It's related to the moon, right? And the moon relates directly to our physical being and to our environment, to our experiences, to the space and the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Think about how our circumstances and the flow of fate and fortune are shifting every moment of every day, right? Just as the moon's light, the quality of light that the moon has, is shifting and changing constantly. So our material self is indicated within the sign of Cancer. So I see the summer solstice as a pause moment, right? It's a pause to reflect on what has come through the light, as we are in the place where the light is the strongest, yet it's slowly starting to fall away. Light is still dominant until we get to 0 Libra, which initiates us into the dark half of the year. So we are on the light half of the year where the light is the strongest, but it's slowly starting to decrease. So happy summer solstice to all of you out there, and happy birthday to our Cancer suns. That's where we start out on Sunday. Then we have a couple days where we don't have any exact aspects that are here, but are starting to build. So on Monday, June 22nd, the moon's in the sign of Libra, and it's going to make a couple oppositions to those Aries planets before we move forward into Tuesday, June 23rd. Libra moon is going to take us through that day as well, and it's going to square Jupiter here. When we move into Wednesday, we start to see more exact aspects that are coming through here. So here, Libra moon is going to move into the sign of Scorpio. It's interesting that it starts out in Venus's sign before it moves forward, and we have a Venus aspect here that day. Venus is going to trine Saturn on Wednesday, June 24th. This is building through the beginning half of the week, so you might start to feel this. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday. Really, we could stretch this transit out through most of the week in the applying and the separating aspect here. When I think about Venus and Saturn coming into this trine, coming into a fire sign, Venus is in the sign of Leo, Saturn is in the sign of Aries. I think about a deepening and a strengthening in our own passions and our own desires. Fire is very, very passionate. It's very much about standing for what we believe in and having some conviction with whatever the thing is that is in front of us, right? Fire is very creative, it's very initiatory, and it wants to create things. It's very passionate. Venus represents our desires, what we want to pull in, what gives us pleasure, what brings us joy, our relationships, how we can connect with other people, what we love and how we want to be loved, and how we love other people and love other things within our life as well. So Venus in Leo can be very tall, proud, wanting to express her desires. And then she comes into this trine with Saturn, and she can stand up. She can stand up strong in Leo. She can get the support of Saturn in the sign of Aries. Now, Saturn in Aries does not have dignity there, right? It's considered to be in its fall. So it's like we can stand up from maybe a difficult place. I'm thinking about standing up from like a raw, rugged, or emerging into something new. Saturn in its fall in Aries. Aries is that first sign of the zodiac. That is where that light comes into dominance, right? So there's an initiation in the sign of Aries. It's also Mars's sign, so it is the place of the warrior. It is the place of going forward no matter what the cost is. So there can be some rugged, unfamiliar terrain there. You can start to see why Saturn, the place of black and white, the planet of, limits and boundaries and wanting to dot the I's and cross the T's and making sure we have everything the way it is. Saturn gives us our hard nose to show us where our yeses is often. This feels like moving through a difficult place, right? Feels like moving through a difficult place, but being able to stand up from that. So it's like if you've been in a war zone, if you feel like you've been beat down in some sort of way, if you feel like you have not been able to rise up, this may give you the strength and the passion to be able to express your desires and to be able to bring them forward. I'm thinking about initiation by fire and adapting rapidly. Maybe even the fight or flight response perhaps coming in, but also a very quick growing ability. Think of fire. Think about a physical fire and how fast fire can spread and how much it can consume in a short period of time. But it can also illuminate, right? It can also illuminate, it can also heat, it can provide as long as it's kept within its whatever its safe container is. If it's allowed to go outside of that, then it can spread like wildfire, right? Very, very quickly. Anytime that you have a planet coming into contact with Saturn, it can feel limited. Yes, it can feel like it's pinned down, but this is a trine. Trines are expansive, and they're usually bringing energies together, bringing things together. So, maturity, bringing things to the next level, having a determined focus, right? Focused on what is coming from deep within us, from our desires, from the heart space. The heart space is so strong in the sign of Leo, right? Venus in Leo is able to stand for for her convictions very, very strongly. It's the place of the sun. It's the place of illumination. And it's a fixed sign too. So it stands strong in what it stands in. It's not bringing in something new. It's not changing, passing over the changeover and facilitating a change like mutable signs, or initiating something like cardinal signs. It's the fixed sign. It's in the middle of the season. It's in the middle of summer. Wondering about being able to boldly, maybe even courageously express our desires here, right? Our needs in pursuing what is calling for us. Being able to triumph over difficulties. Saturn and Aries. There may be difficulties at hand. We may be trying to set boundaries and foundations that feel like they are being met with some sort of resistance, or it feels like we don't quite have the resources that we need. We're going down a path. I know this is the way I need to go, even though if I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there, I know this is the direction that I need to go. That's Aries. Saturn doesn't like that. Saturn likes to have a plan. It likes to have step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and plan, A, B, C, and D. If things don't, it likes to be fully prepared in some sort of way, as much as it possibly can. So being able to move within this way could be possible within this aspect. Now, at the same time, we have a trine with the sun in the north node, and that leaves the sun sextiling the south node at the same time. Anytime a planet is interacting with a major aspect to one of the lunar nodes, you can expect it to be interacting with the other one as well. So just keep that in mind. The lunar nodes are always opposite. The lunar nodes are what give us our eclipses. Now, the sextiles and the trines to the nodes are not always the loudest, especially within the sextile, but there's flow. They have flow within them, right? And within the flow, it's connecting to the journey of where we've been, where we're going, the past, the present, and the future. There's a lot of contemplation of where we have been and where we're going when planets come into contact with the nodes. There's a tendency towards the future, or what is unexplored, or the area that is intriguing us, that is unfamiliar, something that is interesting to us, but it's something that maybe we have not experienced before, because the stronger aspect is to the north node, right? The trine is to the north node, the sextile is to the south node. When you're moving forward, something has your complete attention. It's just natural that there's going to be something that has to fall away in some sort of way. So if we're really focusing on what we're bringing in with the north node, then there's something within the south node, even if it seems like it's a little bit backseat, that is probably going to be released in some sort of way, right? That's just kind of natural. We can only hold so many things in our perspective at one time. So a connection to the past and to the future here, but a tendency towards moving forward. So it's that pioneering energy coming through here of the fire signs of Aries, of Leo. I am going to bring my desires forward of what it is that I'm trying to create, the direction that I am trying to go. When I think of Aries and Leo, I think so much of going out on your own, right? We have the sign of Mars, we have the sign of the sun. Both of them are very individualistic, right? When we're looking at those planets, they illuminate and they separate, kind of like that. I really hope that these trines from Leo to the signs of Aries, so Saturn, planets coming into contact with Neptune as well, are uplifting to that difficult placement. Saturn in Aries gives us the chance to rise up by seeing where old structures and paradigms just aren't serving any longer, right? So if it feels like there's old structures and old things that have been holding us back in some sort of way, and Saturn in Aries has been wanting to pull us into new structures, new paradigms, what has been and what could be. you know, the youthful new generation versus the old generation. That's like a tale as old as time. And the clashing between the two of those. Saturn and Aries can very much be about generational clashes, for sure. Now we get trines from Leo, right? From the place of the sun, the place that wants to be authentic, the place that wants to be individualistic and wants to allow all of the lights to shine. We talked more about that last week's video. Maybe these trines from Leo to Aries will give the strength, the power, the solar feeling from within, the ability to allow our light that's within us, that we have been trying so hard to bring outward. Maybe this is where we can bring it outwardly into the world, right? The fire signs are masculine signs, so they are a little bit more extroverted. They are a little bit louder. They are bringing things outward and presenting them into the world. Leo is very good at presenting things to the world. So my hope is that these trines are helpful and feel uplifting to all of us here in some sort of way. So there we are on Wednesday. And then we're going to go ahead and move forward into Thursday here. We don't have any exact aspects that are coming through here. That Scorpio moon is going to take us through the whole day there. And that Scorpio moon is actually going to bring us right into Friday, June 26th. The moon starts out in sign of Scorpio, moves into the sign of Sagittarius. You can see that we have a handful of aspects that are here that day. The sun is also going to make a square to Neptune here on Friday. Sun, excuse me, sun is now in the sign of Cancer. Neptune is in the sign of Aries, right? When I see the sun and Neptune coming together in the square, I wonder about a crisis of belief. Squares are scratchy. They're challenges. They're things that make us uncomfortable enough to move, right? It's like you have to individuate from something, or you have to overcome an obstacle or a challenge in some sort of way. Neptune can relate to our beliefs, what we feel deep within us, right? So your beliefs spiritually about the universe, about maybe your beliefs about different creations that you've brought into the world. Maybe it's your own, in Aries, maybe it's your own beliefs of your own individuality and how you stand out, or how you can create something of your own in some sort of way. The sun is very individualistic, like we mentioned a few moments ago. It's the soul, it's the identity, it's our power, it's our purpose. So when these two planets come into the square, there can be that challenge or that crisis moment of our identity and our beliefs, our power and our purpose, the direction that we are going, and how we either do or do not feel inspired by that, right? Do I feel deeply connected to the work that I'm doing, or does it feel like there's been a disconnection? These are the type of things that can come up when Sun and Neptune are in square, but especially in this position. Wondering about, these two planets together do have a potentially destabilizing energy, but if you look at the lunar aspects that we have here, there's several oppositions that the moon is making this day. There's an opposition to Mars, there's an opposition to Uranus, there's a square to the lunar nodes here. Wondering with the combination of the lunar aspects and this aspect, how the energy could be potentially destabilizing, but destabilizing does not necessarily mean bad, right? Destabilizing means that it's showing us where there's a weakness, or where there's something to be fixed or something to be repaired. It's showing us where we can focus our energy in some sort of way. So destabilizing does not mean, even if, like the Tower of Cards fall, it allows us to rearrange them in a different type of way, right? So it could be shaking things up to shift them a little bit in some sort of way. The need to express, the need to create, but not really knowing how to do that, or finding challenges around that, are very, very possible here. I'm also wondering about just being able to show our vulnerabilities in some sort of way here, because Neptune can relate to those little bit more subtle energies. There is an emotionality aspect to Neptune, just because of that deep connection that we can feel within us, or that deep disconnection that we can feel within us. Both of those can evoke emotions in some sort of way. And the sun in the sign of Cancer is in the watery place of the moon. It's a water sign. It's the place of the moon. It's the place of emotions, right? And our conditionings that we are, and the different memories that we hold, those tender, vulnerable type spaces. So are we able to show our vulnerabilities? Are we even able to, stepping back from showing our vulnerabilities, are we even allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and to admit where there's vulnerabilities, admit maybe where there's weak spots, where there's soft spots, where we could patch and do a little bit of work. Self-care, care for others, care for the situation and the circumstance can all come up here. The sun in Cancer wants support, it wants care, it wants tenderness. Neptune in Aries brings in strong, passionate longing and wishfulness. Neptune can have us feeling very deeply connected, but also potentially feeling deeply disconnected as well, because Neptune can act as a bit of a smokescreen. So there can be that illusion of separation comes up for me when it's Neptune. So if we're talking about the illusion of separation, we, within this physical 3D material world, it's very hard for us to all the time remember our true self, our true nature, where we've come from, and whatever your own personal beliefs are. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the circumstances and forget just how magical things are. So that can come up here with this aspect. Neptune can dissolve or dissipate, or can let things fall away. So it's like, what can we allow to fall away? What can we allow to dissolve or dissipate that can allow us to feel more connected, right? Are there moments that we can release within our lives that truly disconnect us from our own true nature that we can recognize here and then be able to move from that space? Things that make us feel more connected to ourselves, to our bodies, to our emotions, as well as higher dimensions and higher universal energies, the universe, God, source, and higher power, or just the universe in general, whatever term works for you here. Where can a release or a split or a recognition of some kind, the square, remember, is Mars-like, so there's severing, so that split or that release can come up with the square. Where can we release or split to be able to create space for more, right? More meaning, more connection, more passion, more abilities and more spaces to be able to create something and put what we have to offer out into the world here. I see this possibly coming up with a couple of the different aspects that we have, because the trine can be supporting that putting yourself out there, very, very much so. So cool aspect coming through here. Even though it's a square, it can, if there's a crisis moment, it can lead to something a little bit, I was just going to say better, I was going to say divine, but I'm not really sure if either of those work. So feel free to plug in something a little bit more connected. Feel free to plug in other words that work well for you. So there we are on Friday. And then if we go ahead and move forward into Saturday, June 27th, Mars is going to make a sextile to Jupiter in the sign of Cancer before it moves into the sign of Gemini. I'm thinking with this one off the bat, emotional embodiment. Mars, excuse me. Mars is finishing up its stay in the sign of Taurus in that physical earthly space of Venus. There's a lot of embodiment in the sign of Taurus. So there might be a physical embodiment that we have been exploring with Mars in the sign of Taurus. There's an emotionality with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, right? So just by looking at water and earth here, that emotional embodiment can pop up here. Knowledge and insights that we can move from. Mars makes us move, right? It's our motivations, our ambitions, our passions, the movements that we take. Jupiter is the teacher. It brings in knowledge, it brings in insights, it brings in understandings. So it's like when you come into contact with a new understanding of some kind, how does that affect the way that you move from that space? That is a question that we could all contemplate on at the end of this week here. Sextiles are subtle, but this may have us feeling like we can move in positive ways. It might feel like there's a flowing action. It may feel like there's an ease or an ability to move. Again, those sextiles can be very subtle, but this might feel uplifting for Mars at the end of a little bit more of a difficult stay. Mars is in its detriment in the sign of Taurus. So it's opposite its rulership of the sign of Scorpio, right? So Mars in Taurus is a little bit clunky. Mars wants to move, but it might feel like it can't move quite at the pace that it wants to move because it has to move at that slower Venusian Taurus type space. It also might feel like a little bit of support just before Mars enters the sign of Gemini and makes that conjunction with Uranus. That is going to feel much more destabilizing. That might feel like we are wanting to go in different directions. So if there is some sort of insight or understanding that can come through here, it might be pinging what Mars and Uranus are going to do for us in the not so distant future. So just adding that little tidbit to it as well. Wondering what kind of positive moves and motivations we can have coming through here at the end of the week. And it may be an inspiration that comes from the interaction with Neptune from the sun, or even Venus and Saturn. Venus and Saturn coming together can really create, have us creating spaces where we're able to create structures that around what we want, our pleasures and our desires, that will stand the test of time in some sort of way, or at least that is the goal. So it may feel having us really inspired, like this is something that I can keep going with. This is something that that has started and initiated, Aries is the cardinal sign, that I can keep going and keep moving with because there's some longevity. Saturn has the ability to bring that through, but also the longevity of the sign of Leo, right? Because it's that solid fixed sign. So we're starting something in Aries, but we're keeping it going in the sign of Leo. They're in a trine, right? Because they're both fire signs. So there's that interaction there of starting and initiating, keeping it going. Square between Sun and Saturn might have a little bit, nope, not Sun and Saturn, between Sun and Neptune, may have a bit of a crisis moment, but can it lead to a deeper connection in some sort of way? And then can we move from an inspired space? Can we move from the knowledge and the insights? That's kind of the pathway that I see moving through here this week. So I hope that this week brings inspiration. I hope it brings movement. I hope it brings longevity. I hope it brings you being able to express your heart space, right? Taking that little light from within you and bringing it outward into the world. All right, that is what I have for this week. If you've made it to the end of this video and you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that way we walk through this astrological journey together. We might as well, right? And yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing you at our live meditation. We do have a couple weeks here where we are not having live meditation. Schedule things just get a little bit wonky, and life is life. I run this operation completely on my own, other than a little bit of help from my husband on the back end. So yeah, if I have things that are going on, there's no meditation. So we have the last couple Sundays in June, there is not going to be a meditation. It's been announced on social media, it's announced during the meditation, but looking at June 21st, there will not be a meditation. And then we will be back the 28th, but then we'll be off the 5th of July. So once we get past the 4th of July, we'll be back rolling into our regular schedule. So yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I hope that this video has served you well. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if you feel how you're feeling these energies within your lives. Are you feeling the inspiration of Venus in the sign of Leo, or are you feeling the pull of Venus in the sign of Leo, right? Has Saturn in the sign of Aries had you feeling like there's something for you to overcome? Have you been able to overcome it, or does it feel like it's processed? Remember that Saturn is in Aries for a couple years, so we have still a little ways to go, right? All right, thank you for taking the time to spend with me and with the astrology. I will see you all next week. Take care, have wonderful days. Until next time.